two shepherd children, Maximino and Melanie, saw our Blessed Mother Mary and received urgent messages for all humanity. The Virgin Mary mentioned specifically the need to renounce two grave and very common sins: blasphemy and not honoring Sundays as a day set aside for the Lord to rest and to attend Holy Mass. Our Lady asked the children to pray, to sacrifice, and to propagate the messages. Let's see the history in detail. The apparitions of Our Lady of La Salette occurred on top of the mountainous area of southern-eastern France near the village of La Salette. On Saturday, September 19th in the year 1846, two children named Maximino and Melanie were caring for the sheep. It was a very hot day, so the children decided to eat their lunch in a shaded area. They took the cattle to a small mountain opening and decided to stay and take a nap. Both children slept deeply. Some time later, Melanie woke up and she did not see the cattle. Then she quickly awakened Maximino and they both together went in search for the cattle and found them resting in the pasture. Both of them greatly relieved to see that their cattle had remained in the same place. The two children then returned to the spot where they had napped to get the utensils they had used for lunch, and suddenly they saw a luminous globe that seemed like a globe of fire. In the children's words, the sun had fallen there. The light swirled, then grew in size, and it opened. Then the children saw a woman seated, with her head in her hands, with her elbows on her knees, in the attitude of one oppressed with grief, and was crying bitterly. Melanie and Maximino were a little bit frightened, but the lady, rising slowly to her feet and crossing her arms softly, called the children towards her and told them not to be afraid. The children could not identify their heavenly visitor. They simply called her the Beautiful Lady. The Beautiful Lady now stood up while the children remained transfixed where they were. She said to them in French, "Come near, my children, be not afraid. I am here to tell you great news." Fully reassured by these words of our mother, the children hurried to meet her. The children said that her voice was like music, and the lady also took a few steps towards them. They approached Our Lady. They looked at her and noticed that Our Lady did not cease weeping all the time she spoke to them. The lady was tall and with a majestic appearance. Her dress was white in color with an apron around her waist. It seemed to be gold in color, but they could not say for certain because the fabric did not seem to be of the earth. It shone more brilliantly than the sun. Over her arms, she had a beautiful white shawl surrounded by a border containing many multicolored roses. A chain with a crucifix hung from her neck. Two items hung over the crossbar of the crucifix. On one side a hammer and on the other side pliers. A crown of roses was on her head and radiated luminous rays like a diamond. Tears came from her beautiful eyes and flowed over her cheeks. A light more brilliant than the sun but somehow different surrounded her. Our Lady told the children that the hand of her son was so heavy and strong that she could no longer sustain it. It would only change if people would do penance and obey the laws of God. If they did not, they would have to suffer much. The Beautiful Lady said, "People do not observe the day of the Lord. They continue to work without ceasing on Sundays. Only some older women go to the Mass in the summer, and in the winter, when there is nothing else to do, they go to church to ridicule religion. Lenten time is ignored. During Lent, they go to the meat market like dogs. Men swear, taking the name of God in vain. The disobedience and disregard of God's commandments are the things that make the hand of my son heavier. If my people will not obey, I shall be compelled to loose my son's arm. It is so heavy, so pressing that I can no longer restrain it. How long I have suffered for you. If my son is not to cast you off, I am obliged to entreat him without ceasing. But you take not the least notice of that. No matter how well you pray in the future, no matter how well you act, you will never be able to make up to me what I have endured for your sake. I have appointed you 6 days for working. The 7th I have reserved for myself, and no one will give it to me. This it is which causes the weight of my son's arm to be crushing. The cart drivers cannot swear without bringing in my son's name. These are the two things which make my son's arms so burdensome. If the harvest is spoiled, it is your own fault. I warned you last year by means of potatoes. You paid no heed. Quite the reverse, when you discovered that the potatoes had rotted, you swore. You abused my son's name. They will continue to rot, and by Christmas this year there will be none left. If you have grain, it will do no good to sow it. For what you sow, the beasts will devour, and any part of it that springs up will crumble into dust when you thresh it. A great famine is coming, but before that happens, the children under 7 years of age will be seized with trembling and die in their parents' arms. The grown-ups will pay for their sins by hunger, the grapes will rot, and the walnuts will turn bad. After saying all this, here the beautiful lady addressed the children separately, confiding to each a secret. She spoke first to Maximino. Melanie at his side could not hear a word, but she still saw the beautiful lady's lips moving. Then came Melanie's turn to receive her secret. Both secrets were given in French. The lady said that if the people would convert, the rocks and the stones would become wheat and potatoes and would be found planted on the earth. Then she asked the children, "Do you pray your prayers well, my children?" They both responded, "Oh no, my lady, not too well." Our lady answered, "Oh my children, you have to say them well at night time and in the morning. When you cannot pray them well, pray an Our Father and a Hail Mary, and when you have time and can, pray more." With her maternal voice, Our Lady ended, "Well, my children, tell all this to my people." Our Lady then moved toward the place where the children had went to look for the cattle. Her feet glided, touching only the tips of the grass. On the mountain, the lady stopped. Melanie and Maximino ran towards her rapidly to see where she was heading. Our Lady elevated slowly. She stayed elevated a few minutes, a few meters up. Our Lady then looked up to heaven, and to her right, to her left, and lastly into the eyes of the children. And then Our Lady intermingled with the globe of light. The apparition ended. Only a few believed what the children saw and heard. The farmers who came into contact with the children were amazed at them. The following morning, Melanie and Maximino were taken to see the pastor. He was an older priest, very generous and respected. The priest, upon interrogating the children and hearing of the events, was very surprised and believed that they were telling the truth. The following Sunday at Mass, the priest spoke about the visit of Our Lady and her petition. When the news that the pastor spoke about the apparition reached the bishop, he was reprimanded and replaced by another priest. Melanie and Maximino were constantly interrogated by curious people. They simply said the same story, repeating it over and over. To those interested in going up the mountain, they took them to the place where Our Lady appeared. On several occasions, they were even threatened with jail if they did not deny the alleged apparitions and if they continued to speak about them. But without fear or hesitation, the children continued to report all the messages that Our Lady gave them. Soon after, a fountain emerged near the place where Our Lady appeared. The water from the fountain ran down to the stream below. Many miracles started to occur, and also the terrible calamities foretold by Our Lady started to happen. The terrible potato famine of 1846 occurred, especially bad in Ireland, where many died. The shortage of wheat and corn was very severe. More than 1 million people in Europe died of hunger. A disease affected the grapes throughout all of France. Most likely the punishment would have been worse without the messages of Our Lady of La Salette. However, as a result, many people started to go to Mass and the business began to close on Sundays and people stopped working unnecessarily, and also the bad words and blasphemies started to diminish. So this was a beautiful history of Our Lady of La Salette. Please visit the site in the description to know the secrets that Our Lady told to the children. Thank you so much for watching.